Did this thing start? Hey, you found us again, Iron Revival. Welcome to another video. Today, we're going to talk about cueing. We're going to talk about verbal cues and physical cues, and what we like about the physical cues and using constraints to help get the point across. Sometimes a little bit better, and it tends to stick more. Without going into too much more than that, stick around. Roger, let's get this thing started off. Why would I even want to use a physical cue?
Well, the verbal cues are great. Some of the common things where you'll give someone maybe a direction or, um, a quick tightness or point this that way. Those are great because they're, excuse me, they're quick, they're easy, they convey the point nicely in some cases, but they really are underpinned by a cooperative understanding that you've already accomplished. So, if I'm, working with you, another kettlebell coach, I might say, hips. That's a verbal cue. And when you hear that, immediately my hips, either I'm not driving fast enough, whatever, enough to be able to just kind of dig into your awareness and immediately do what I want. It's very quick. When you're dealing with new people, when you're learning a new skill, we don't really have that foundation in a lot of cases. And the verbal cues that we as coaches use don't usually make sense to them because they've never achieved what we've achieved. So they don't have that knowledge to fall back on. So that's when we get into the verbal cues. If we're talking about how our bodies and brains really learn, we don't speak in language. We really speak in movement. That's kind of the language of the body. So when we get into physical cueing, we tend to get faster, deeper results, because you're in a sense showing the body the way it needs to move rather than telling it. And one way that we like to cue people is with constraints, which when you get to the meaning of the word, it just means to limit. So
Right.
a
It's not
very
some sort of weird bondage thing.
no, I was a little disappointed. I thought it had a dual meaning too, but it's just, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I guess, I don't want to put constraints on you. So if you want to use it in your bondage relationship, then I'm
oh,
good with that.
okay. Well, that's a lot right there.
Um, but one very quick example that a lot of people get who've been around the kettlebell world for a while is when you are doing, let's say, a snatch, and doing it near a wall or a sheet or something. The wall in front of you is really limiting your movement option. If your arm is too long, then you're going to hit the wall, which you clearly don't want to do. So physical constraints are eliminating movement options. Now, you don't necessarily always get, you know, the you don't always necessarily get the right outcome. You could put the wall in front of someone could just turn the other way. Then obviously, you're not getting what you want. But when you give someone a physical limitation, um, I really like to look at it as you're creating a problem. Okay. And that person needs to figure out a way to solve that problem with motion. So if if we return to the example of the snatch, if someone's, let's say they're casting in a time and a place and in a way that you don't want them to cast, okay, you want them to keep that arm short on the way up, on the way down, then what you're really doing is you're trying to limit their movement. Okay, so their normal path of how they do things is impeded. That's a problem for them. Okay, that's kind of a puzzle. Okay, so rather than saying I want you to think about keeping your arm glued to your side, or any potential verbal cue that does that, you're putting a problem in front of them, an obstacle, and you're saying, okay, I want you to do the snatch but not hit the wall. So that constraint is limiting their option, and they need to figure out how to solve that. Okay, so you're not teaching through words, you're teaching through motion. You're putting a barrier in front of somebody. And it's a pretty simple process. It's usually just kind of a two step deal that we go through in order to do that.
That makes sense. That is a good way. And is it possible to do that with every kettlebell exercise, or only certain ones like ballistics and those sorts of things?
No, there's some creativity. There's some creativity involved, but back to what I was just saying about the two-step process. The You need to figure out what your movement objective is. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about power or hypertrophy, or that's a training objective, and a different thing. When we say movement objective, if you look at a movement objective for a kettlebell press, it's to take a kettlebell and put it over your head.
Right.
So, knowing your movement objective, and, then we'll get into the physical reality about how, a kettlebell moves in time and space and the things that we need. Let's say, for example, we have someone you got my arm okay out here? Let's say we have someone who, for whatever reason, no matter what we tell them to start in the rack, they're starting out here. So let's say they're opening too soon. So as we go up, rather than starting to open gradually, they're immediately opening and then trying to press. Okay. A constraint is to just put something here at a particular time. Maybe it's I really like to use the mobility stick. It's really
Right.
helpful for that, but maybe a foam roller, or getting them even close to a wall or something, and basically giving them a groove that they need to respect. A bottoms up kettlebell press is in a way constraints based training, because if you have another problem, let's say someone wants to press and their forearm is getting too far off vertical, then you tell them to do a bottoms up press and they either do it or they don't. If that forearm does not remain vertical, unless the bell is really light or they just have crazy grip strength, that bell is going to come crashing down. So you can do that. You can do that with a squat. You can do it with a press. You can do it with a get up. Any way really that you don't want to see motion, you can find some sort of physical barrier to put there. Another example is, let's say people are swinging below the knee in either a snatch or a swing, rather than keeping it nice and high and tight, and you don't
Right.
want that, then you can have them swing over a stack of cones or yoga blocks or something like that.
Right.
And basically, rather than going into, look how smart I am, I know all this stuff about kettlebells and anatomy and physics and all of these crazy lengthy analogies, I want you to pretend that you have a mouse in your pocket and that mouse is reading an algebra book and all kinds of weird shit. I've heard some interesting stuff in the past couple of days. But rather than doing that,
no comment.
rather than doing that, just say, don't hit the blocks.
Yeah, I like that. I've used that one several times, especially like with beginners. I usually elevate a little bit. I tape their iPhone to a kettlebell handle and just, let them know. It usually cleans it up, but that's certainly good. Thanks for that. There probably is a million different ways. You just got to get kind of creative about it and just look at what could potentially make an obstacle that won't actually injure the person that's doing the training.
Yeah, I mean, between
too badly.
RX pads, foam rollers, mobility sticks, walls, bed sheets, bands. I mean, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that you can use. There don't need to be, tons of restrictions on this. It really just comes down to that process is understanding the objective and what part of that objective is not being met efficiently, and then finding some way to eliminate the superfluous, the unnecessary, or the inefficient motion to channel it back to where it needs to be.
Got it.
That's really what constraints-based training is all about. It's very simple, very effective. I get good results with it.
Awesome. I like that. That's definitely some good food for thought. So let's see what people come up with. And obviously you can follow us on Instagram. I already know there's a really good one about constraints-based training cues with the clean that you posted up. So search out and find that, and I'll make sure that ends up on the Iron Revival page for people to check out. So anything else you want to add to the constraints-based training and physical cueing?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, stay tuned. We're going to add more to this next week.